All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. Garlic's still going slow. You see over here, a lot of the moisture is leaked out of the onions and mixed with the oil. So this is good. You can see how all the onions are soft now. Now after we add the tomato, they're gonna keep cooking, but they'll be cooking in a moist environment. I'm just scraping this stuff down from the edges. So if we want any browning, we would get it done now. But because we don't really care for any more browning, you can see the garlic is the exact same color as was earlier, but it's a little lighter because it was simmering in some water. So tomatoes are slightly hydrated, onions are translucent with a slight bit of browning. We're gonna leave this over here and come over to the can of tomatoes. At this point, I think I've worked in a lot of restaurants and you just throw this whole thing in there at this point, but I'm actually going to only throw in the liquid. I'm not gonna throw in the whole tomatoes yet. So just gonna a little sounds good. Okay. So put that down. Wipe my hand, and we'll wipe up the tomato sauce that I spilled. Okay, so why did I only add the liquid part and leave the whole parts? It's because when you're cooking down tomatoes, it's fine when it's like this, but when it gets to the more dry point and there's oil mix in there, it's gonna start popping and it's gonna get all over the place. And then you have to cook it slower. We're actually gonna go full heat on this one. You have to cook it slower because you're trying to not burn anybody who's working there or working around you or make a mess. So we are gonna end up cooking the tomatoes, but we only added the liquid because that's the wettest part of this whole mixture. So once we reduce this down to that point where it's starting to pop, we're gonna add the whole tomatoes in there, cook it down, and then we'll blend it together. So basically, less popping because that's the drier part, this is the wetter part. If you cook the wettest part down, that's most of the moisture. Okay, so let me look over here. I put on full blast, it's starting to pop over here, but it's not the type of pop that I'm talking about when you see it's really thick. It's like, it looks like molten lava. The bubbles come up and then they pop and then little specks go everywhere. This is still high moisture content bubbling. So our goal is to reduce this as fast as possible. So we're going on full heat, lid off. Now, when it starts to pop and go everywhere, we turn the heat down slightly until it pops even when it's at a low temperature. Then we'll add that stuff in, just let it cook down, and then we'll just go straight for the finish. All right, so this has been simmering for about 15 minutes. And remember to scrape down the edges like this. Get all the dried parts on the edge of the pot. You see how clean it is? Keep it clean, keep everything stable. And so on the bottom of this, there's all the chunky stuff. Obviously, heavy stuff sinks, liquid rises. Earlier, this chunkiness level, you see when I push it, this chunkiness level had about a ½ inch of liquid on top. But you can see, like, here's some loose liquid over here, and there's some over here. But there was a lot more earlier, now most of it's gone. But we still have to keep cooking this until it gets drier. And then we'll add the solid tomatoes. And actually, since it's been sitting for a while, some more liquid has come up. We're gonna get that in there. tip it off. Now, if you had a colander, this would be much easier because you would have just dumped the whole thing in. But I don't have one, so you work with what you got. We're gonna leave this for another 15 minutes or so and we'll check back. This is about 20-30 minutes. I haven't touched it at all, just so you know what it looks like. So as you can see, it's bubbling in this area. This is the cold area, so I've been just pushing, just been rotating all the garlic every once in a while. I push all the stuff being cooked here and then let the other side rotate. So see over here, the line kind of went down some. That means it's drying off. You see there's oil sitting on top. That's the olive oil from earlier, so that means it's starting to split a little bit, and that's a good thing. Here, you can see it's starting to dry out too, and you can feel where if you look over here, when I scrape it, it's thick sauce, but over here is still loose liquid. So we're still waiting for that to cook down, but we're gonna stir it. So you see how it flows? Too wet. So it's gonna take another, I would say, half an hour to an hour. Now, if you were just trying to make tomato soup, it would be fine right now. But I'm trying to make more of a sauce consistency. One that you don't drink, but you dip the cheese sandwich that we made earlier yesterday. So you can see overall getting thicker, popping, but not splattering everywhere. Okay, so we stirred it and we're gonna leave it again. All right, we got minor splattering. I'm gonna wipe it up and it's ready. Like I said, you don't want to make a big mess. Splattering to a minimum. So we're gonna add the rest of these tomatoes. Make sure you go low or you're gonna splatter on yourself. So, see this? Take a little bit of water. Get it all out, and we'll come over here. Put the lid in. Like that. Then it won't fall out. Won't cut anybody doing the trash later. All right. So I tasted it earlier. It was under season, but since we can add the seasoning later, I didn't do anything. But since the tomatoes are in there now, it's a little bit cooler, easier for me to taste. Tastes like bland tomatoes, even though you put all that stuff in there. We're actually gonna get the spicy lime. Pretty sure it's pronounced tagine. Might be tagine. I don't know, but I'm gonna spicy lime. Citric acid. That's the stuff that makes chips taste good. It's like that, I don't know if it's Mexican. That chip brand with the, you know, all the chips with the lime on it. That's basically what that tastes like. So with tomatoes, you'll get the normal type of acid kick. With that, you'll get the, how should I say, processed acid kick. So it'll be a very punchy, bright sauce. I'm gonna add more salt in here too. Now, bear in mind, I am going to be reducing this further. So we do want it to be less seasoned than I would want it. So since we added tomatoes in there, I'm going to crank it up to high to reheat everything faster. Then we'll turn it back down. You can see it's a very thick sauce right now. Now, for this step, we're just trying to cook the tomatoes that these whole tomatoes down to the same overcookedness as everything else. And then that'll be perfectly cooked. It's like mac salad, perfectly overcooked. Yep, you got that citric acid hit, but I want more. Okay, salt. I want
Some right here.
You see this? I just grabbed sugar from a bin. Don't try this at home. You're gonna have a trail of sugar everywhere, unless you're good at gripping sugar like me. So, turn on. What? Why this me? Alright, so great bottom all the time. Make sure you don't burn the bottom. It shouldn't burn because there's liquid in here, but good habit. Clean the edges. Go left to right. Scrape all the bottom. And then do a stir on the top part. Fold it all in. Get it all even. You can taste it now. Alright, that tastes good. So, for the most part, this is done, except for the last step, which is blending it to make it smooth. I'm just gonna let it cook a little bit more to get all these tomatoes melted. Then we're gonna leave this out, room temp, to let it cool down before we put it in the fridge. After we let it chill overnight, we'll blend it. Kind of let everything settle in together, and also you don't want to blend it while it's hot, or you're gonna explode it and it's gonna go everywhere, unless you know what you're doing. And I don't know what I'm doing. So 10 minutes and then we'll just turn it off. We'll look at the garlic over here. You see this garlic, very soft. I'm gonna chop this piece in half, just look at that, just melted. So for the most part, this is also done. We're gonna do the same thing. Turn it off, let it sit. Same thing with this. I'm actually just gonna turn it off. So I turned off both. We're just gonna let them sit on the heat and just cool down slowly. I could pull it off and that would make it cool slower, but we don't mind. We're gonna let it go down slow. And then we'll be back tomorrow for the last step of this. All right, we're back. It's a new day and we're gonna process the tomatoes now. So if you come closer and look, it's a lot thicker because it's cold and also kind of settled in overnight. So I dumped it out of here into here because tomorrow for service, we're gonna pick it up in the pot. So it doesn't make sense to scoop out of here, put it in here. Well, I guess you could do that. But anyways, we're gonna blend it, we're gonna put it in here, and then we're gonna adjust the seasoning tomorrow. So we'll just fill this up. Don't fill it up too much or it won't blend very smoothly. That's probably the most you wanna go, 60%. Put it on, close the lid. Also, you always wanna start on low, then turn it up, because if you go high immediately, it'll shoot out the top. So low, bring it up. Okay, the power cut out. So
either turn off.
all right, electricity's too weak in the living room because of my chest freezer over there. So we're gonna plug it in over here instead. We'll see if this shorts it out. it was too loud for me to talk. So you saw how I was only blending the bottom part, so I had to use this to push it down. You see how it's lighter in color down here and darker up here? That means two things. This stuff didn't mix in, and also when you blend it, you add air to it, so it's getting lighter in color. But this is blended enough. Let me just taste the texture. All right, that's fine. Come back over here. So you could pass it through a chinois if you wanted a more fine sauce, but this is fine for me. Slightly chunky. Shake it all in there, and we'll scoop some more. All right, so I'm gonna fill this one less since there's less than half in there anyways for the third one. Okay, we'll come back over here again. Pull it out so the air can vacuum in the center. So I was going in a circle, pushing down, scraping down all these edges. This left hand was pressing down, because if you don't hold it down and you're doing this, you might shake this thing and you'll mess up the blade on the bottom because it's gears grinding against each other. So pressing it down while I'm trying to shake sideways, it's not doing anything. So pin down, go around. That rhymed. I get 10 points for that. Shake it out. Also, you notice I saran wrapped the table today because we're gonna be building sandwiches on the table. Okay, so put the ladle in there. I'll get the rest in the blender. Clean it. Take the blender top, shake it off so it doesn't drip. Go back in there. Now while we go this way, we're gonna put this in the sink because we're done. So that's done. Since we're done with the Vitamix, we're putting out tons of Naveen, or they're all done, so we're ready and shipping. Let's start with this one. Also, I forgot to talk about the garlic. I let it cool and then I put it in here. So this is pretty much it. From here you can either freeze it or you can leave it up on a shelf somewhere. It's packed in oil and it was boiling hot for a long time, so it'll keep. Okay, scrape the edges down. Get all into that center channel, then push it. Scrape, push. All right, put this in here. Put this in here. I don't need this ladle anymore, so take it all to the sink at one time. And this is ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll just bring it to a boil and re-season it. So we'll come put it in the fridge. Oh, before I forget, I'm gonna taste it right now. And just like all the other YouTube channels and chefs and whatever, They can tell you it's the most amazing tasting thing ever. But that's not believable because you have no proof. So I'm never gonna tell you something tastes really amazing or whatever. You can make it at home for yourself and come up with your own conclusion.